All right, I view this as a final boss of sorts for the 49ers. Both sides of the football when they play the Ravens in this great showdown on Monday night. But the one that we're going to talk about, or at least start the discussion about today, is the final boss showdown for the 49ers defense against the former MVP, Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson might be operating from the pocket as well as he has operated his entire career. So this is going to be a challenge for the 49ers. They're not facing Jalen Hurts anymore. Let me put it that way. Lamar Jackson is a lot better quarterback than Jalen Hurts. So you could talk about blueprints from Philadelphia. And yeah, you take some of those principles and you apply them in this game against Baltimore to combat a mobile quarterback. But you're going to have to be on your P's and Q's even more than you were in Philly just because of how talented Lamar Jackson is in terms of throwing on time, throwing quickly, and playing within the context of his offense. It's not, okay, I'm going to run and then hope that somebody gets open, and then I'm going to use some athleticism to chuck the ball downfield. That's the Jalen Hurts game plan. It's not all too sustainable for the Philadelphia Eagles when some stuff goes wrong. Sustainability over the long term in the NFL involves winning from the pocket and using your legs as a bonus. Well, they're a very nice bonus for Lamar Jackson because of how well he could run, how well he can run fast, but he can also control his speed. We know how dangerous he is scrambling, but Lamar's been playing on time this year. The tape that I've watched of this guy, to me, shows me that this is going to be one of the bigger challenges that the 49ers face all season, if not the biggest challenge that this defense faces all season. The one stat that I had for Lamar Jackson that really blew me away, and I've talked about this in other videos on my tweets, but it's worth leading this show with before we get into the 49ers fatigue and run defense issues because it all ties together. But Brock Purdy leads the league in deep pass efficiency. Brock Purdy leads the league in intermediate pass efficiency. It's actually Lamar Jackson who leads the league in short pass efficiency. 7.6 yards per attempt on throws that travel less than 10 air yards. Brock Purdy, 7.5 yards per attempt, is number 2 in the NFL on throws that travel less than 10 air yards. And guess what? No matter what people will try to sell you, this isn't Madden, this isn't fantasy football. Throws of less than 10 air yards are going to be the most correlated to winning or losing football games. If you can't deliver on the short stuff, then you can't deliver in the NFL. This was the problem with Trey Lance, right? I thought that he was decent in the intermediate game. I thought he threw some nice deep balls for the 49ers in training camp, but he could never develop consistency with the short game. This was also an issue for Lamar Jackson earlier in his career. The gimme game just wasn't there. That's why he struggled in some of those playoff games for Baltimore early on. But this year, Lamar Jackson is leading the league in short pass efficiency. And I think that's an absolute game changer. And I think that's something that's really going to strain this 49ers defense on Monday. This is why it's such a big challenge, because Lamar can play from the pocket. When you can play from the pocket, you can control the proceedings. You have that run game at your disposal. It's the number 1 run game in the league for Baltimore. Gus Edwards, 238 pounds. He's their top running back now. The guy is a complete bowling ball. And if you're Baltimore and you're pulling the strings right, just like the 49ers pull the strings right offensively, run and pass, keeping it balanced, you're going to put the 49ers defense into a compromised position. And the compromised position that I'm talking about here for the San Francisco 49ers is one that revolves around missed tackles. This team has struggled, really, really struggled over the past few weeks to bring ball carriers down. And I'm going to put this up on to the screen right now so we can have a look at the actual numbers as they relate to fatigue. The credit for this chart is going to go to Steph Sanchez. She's on Twitter at Steph49K. So give Steph49K a follow. I always, when there's good content online, and I put these numbers out, but Steph turned this into a nice chart. I always like to give people credit and give some of these accounts covering the 49ers who do a really good job some love. I know a lot of people watch this show, so go ahead and give Steph a follow out there. But the 49ers and missed tackles. Take a look at this. Weeks 1 through 5, that was the start of the season when they were fresh. Everybody was happy. Look how low those missed tackle numbers are per game. I mean, they're getting smaller per game, really, right? Started out at 7 and 8 against Pittsburgh and the Rams. down to 3 against the Giants, up to 4, which is a really low number against Arizona, and then 2. That's just minuscule against Dallas. Something happened between weeks 5 and 6. At some point, it looks like the 49ers started to get tired. And that happens over the course of these seasons. But they missed 10 tackles against Cleveland. They missed 9 against Minnesota. And here, I have a different number. They missed 13 against Cincinnati. I know Steph did a good job with this chart. I've seen 13 against Cincinnati. So they've averaged over 10 missed tackles per game from week 6 to 8. Then you go to the bye week, and after the bye week, the 49ers came out firing. They missed only 7 against Jacksonville, 4 against Tampa Bay, 5 against Seattle. But look again, same type of deal as you saw before the bye week. The number starts climbing. 12, 15, and 16 against Arizona. It's a season high. So if we have 13 in this number against Cincinnati, then you see it peak before the 49ers get rest. Here it peaks or hits a nadir, really, because this is not a number that you want to see register higher. The 49ers are doing their worst football in terms of missing tackles as of late. So I think it's clear. I think that the 49ers, as they get more tired over the course of the season, they miss more tackles. This is nothing new. Somebody asked me today in the YouTube comment section, what's the deal with this missed tackling and this fatigue stuff? This seems to be a 2023 problem. It's not. In 2021, the 49ers didn't get a bye in the postseason, and they struggled their way and labored their way through. Narrowly won against Dallas, narrowly won against Green Bay, were ahead against the Rams, but then just ran out of gas in the fourth quarter, in the second half, especially against the Rams. But the fourth quarter was where it was most pronounced. But fatigue is a thing for any NFL team. Last year, I don't think that we saw it fully play out because the 49ers just went into injury preservation mode against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. But that would have been a challenge down the stretch against the Eagles, who had enjoyed the bye week and the 49ers didn't. So getting the bye week is so important for the 49ers this year because of this. Because they are tailing off as far as tackling ability goes. This defense pins its ears back, goes after the quarterback. They fly around the football. That's the type of defense, especially with how physical it is, that's going to pay a price if it doesn't have enough rest. So it is no coincidence the 49ers' best football tackling came after the bye week of the offseason and after the bye week in the midseason. They'd like to add another bye week entering the postseason. I think here against Baltimore, it's going to be very tough sledding for the 49ers. They have an extra day of rest. I get it. It's Monday Night Football. But when you're facing Gus Edwards, who's a bowling ball at 238 pounds, when you're facing Lamar Jackson, not just Lamar Jackson throwing, but Lamar Jackson running, changing speeds, you have to be fully on point if you're the 49ers defense. And I know some legs are dragging right now. They've been on the field a little bit more often, too, because of how explosive the 49ers offense has been. This is not something that the 49ers are going to try to change. You want your offense to be as explosive as possible at all times, but it is a natural byproduct of teams that are very, very good and explosive offensively, that their defense is going to have to come onto the field a little bit more often because you're scoring at a higher rate, right? And when you score at a higher rate, then you kick off at a higher rate. So I think that there are several factors here with the 49ers defense, but one, it's just that point of the season where everybody's tired. Their style has lent itself to some trouble against the run, especially as the unit has been tired in years past. And I think that point of fatigue has come a little bit sooner, given the fact that the offense is obviously doing what it's doing and it's putting the defense in position to where it's on the field a little bit more often. It was a great example. The defense put itself on the field more often against the Arizona Cardinals when Charvarius Ward notched the pick six. Because immediately what happens then is you kick off and the defense has to run back out there after running down the whole field. At least Charvarius Ward did. So, against this Ravens team, the 49ers are going to be challenged to the max. They're going to be challenged to the brim defensively because we've seen some of these fracture points. I've talked about the fact that the Ravens are the number 1 run offense in the league and the 49ers are the number 18 run defense. I talk about Lamar Jackson's excellent short pass efficiency. That's something that's frustrated Nick Bosa and the 49ers pass rush already, because if he can get rid of the ball quickly, it's going to be tough for that defensive line to hit home. It's going to be strength on strength and maybe even strength on weakness from the Ravens' perspective against the 49ers run defense in this football game. It's a top 5 offense for Baltimore, and the 49ers are really trying to prove that they are indeed that top 3 to top 5 defense. And they're going to have to do it, I think, in non-ideal circumstances. Everybody's waiting for the statuses of Javon Hargrave and Eric Armstead, and those are obviously going to be a huge deal. We won't know more until tomorrow at the soonest, but the 49ers are in a situation where I think they have met a match in the Ravens. And if they go out and they play a great game on Monday night, if they hold Baltimore the under 20 points, give this defense its flowers. Because this defense has done a lot of good stuff this year, but it has run out of gas in more strained situations. And the offense has been the driving force of this 49ers team. Complementary football is going to be needed to beat an opponent as good as the one that is coming in on Monday night. One thing about Lamar Jackson, and this applies to Brock Purdy too, this is going to be high-level football. Both of these guys are excellent under pressure. Brock Purdy has a quarterback rating of 94.9 when he's been under pressure this year. Lamar Jackson's quarterback rating is 88.1 when he's been under pressure this year. Most NFL quarterbacks, the vast majority of them, they don't have a rating of over 80 when they're under pressure. So both Brock and Lamar are very good processors under pressure. They're both experienced enough. I mean, Lamar Jackson's been around now for a little while, but Brock Purdy, I mean, it's his second season, and he already is showing 10th year level processing and ability to get rid of the football. We had so many good examples of that against the Arizona Cardinals, where they try to light him up with a blitz a couple times, and it didn't work because Purdy got rid of the ball way too quickly. He hit George Kittle, hit Jawan Jennings on a couple of those on a couple of those crossers. When there haven't been blitzes against Brock Purdy, he's still been able to pick the defense apart because he understands the geometric advantage that the 49ers are going to have with all their skill position weapons. Those guys are so talented. It's really impossible to cover them all if the pass protection is just decent. In the case of Brock Purdy, he's also able to escape from pressure in a lot of the ways that Lamar Jackson can escape from pressure. And this is one of the cool parallels of this game that I've been waiting to bring up again until this week, because you have to bring up the Lamar Jackson comparison when you play the Ravens if you're the 49ers with Brock Purdy. Take a look at this. This is the percentile measurements for Brock Purdy, percentile versus other quarterbacks. This is just the physical side of things. Maybe we could, we could zoom out a bit so you could see the full thing. This, to me, is amazing. It's percentile measurement at each category. Brock Purdy is obviously very average, if not below average, when it comes to arm length, when it comes to weight, when it comes to height, even when it comes to vertical jump. But then all of a sudden, with the 40-yard dash to a certain extent, and then the 10-yard split of the 40-yard dash to a massive extent, Brock Purdy performs way better than the other physical metrics that he's listed in here. And it's the 10-yard split that is the most jarring. 95th percentile for Brock Purdy. And strap into your seats here so you don't fall out of your chairs when I tell you what I'm going to say next. But Brock Purdy's 10-yard burst, which is the first 10 yards of his 40-yard dash, which is the ultimate measure of short area acceleration, is essentially as fast as Lamar Jackson's. So Brock Purdy's 155, Lamar Jackson's 154. If you'll recall, in 2021, when the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were going through their process of deciding who to select in the NFL draft, it would end up being Trey Lance. Kyle Shanahan said in the famous press conference that came right before that, he said, I'm looking for a quarterback who can throw like Drew Brees and move like Lamar Jackson. Well, obviously, we've compared Brock Purdy to Drew Brees because his accuracy, his ability to pick apart a defense, the fact that he's not the tallest of stature, all those things are obvious parallels. But the move like Lamar Jackson part is something that gets lost on a lot of people. And I really do believe the 49ers have found a quarterback who can move like Lamar Jackson and throw like Drew Brees in Brock Purdy, because the 10-yard split is what matters. It's not about running as fast as Lamar Jackson on a 40-yard dash. It's about the ability to move in short areas, to influence the pocket, to manipulate what's going on back there, to sidestep rushers, to do whatever you need to buy a little bit of extra time and continue looking downfield to throw. That's what the 10-yard split is about. And that's where Brock Purdy has essentially the same time as Lamar Jackson. So that's one of the reasons why both of these guys are so good under pressure. They both have the short area quickness to get away from the acute pressure that is part of the NFL invariably on a week in and week out basis. And I think we're going to see two masters of getting away from pressure, of manipulating the pocket this week in Brock Purdy against Lamar Jackson. Of course, Lamar is a player who I think a lot of people just think, okay, he's just going to run out there and he's going to sprint for a 40 or 50-yard dash. And if you're not ready as a defense, he can catch you off guard and beat you that way. And of course he can do that. But again, I go back to the challenge the 49ers face, and that Lamar Jackson, I think, is an all-around QB that has weapons this year. I mean, this is not like the Ravens of years past when the 49ers faced them in 2019. It was the tight end, Mark Andrews, and then it was everybody else. You go up and down this lineup. Zay Flowers is the leading receiver for Baltimore. Odell Beckham Jr. is on this team. It's a good offensive line. Ronnie Stanley at that left tackle position. Isaiah Likely has replaced Mark Andrews, who's on IR, as the leading tight end. And obviously, we talk about the bowling ball, the 238-pound Gus Edwards. It's not going to be easy for the 49ers to combat this group of weapons. You're going to talk about disciplined pass rushing lanes for San Francisco, but you also have to try to chomp in on that sack. The linebackers are going to be so important. It's vital that Dre Greenlaw actually practices this week, because I don't think that he played that well without practice last week. I think Fred Warner is going to have a bounce back game, because it's a Baltimore team that's going to attack you on multiple different levels. They could line up in a running formation and bruise you. They're the number one run offense in football, but they can also pass out of that running formation. So yes, losing Mark Andrews hurts in that regard, because he's one of the best tight ends in the game, but Isaiah Likely's done a good job, and you can also go play action to the outside. And that's where all-pro Charvarius Ward, that's where Diamond Lenore coming off the rib injury. All these guys are going to be really important. Somebody today asked me if this might be an Isaiah Oliver game. I think that Baltimore in 2019 might have made it an Isaiah Oliver game almost with certainty, because they were such a tight end oriented team. But Baltimore of 2023 can move the ball a little bit more with a little bit more with its shiftier receivers. Baltimore has short area quickness on the outside now. Zay Flowers is lined up a lot in the slot. Rashad Bateman's lined up out wide. And obviously you have Odell Beckham Jr., who's one of the most tenured outside receivers in the game, still a very talented player who's grabbed a lot of catches this year for the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't think that you could afford to give up too much short area quickness if you're the 49ers to combat the bruising ability of the Ravens in their run game. But you might have to give up some of that short area quickness, because, again, when you look at Gus Edwards, he's 238 pounds. It's going to be really hard to defend this. And Lamar Jackson, if he pulls the right strings at the line of scrimmage, if he chooses to run when the time is right, if he chooses to call for an intermediate or a deep pass instead of the short one, or vice versa when the time is right, that's how you can keep a really good 49ers defense off balance, especially a good 49ers defense that has shown those signs of fatigue. All right, time for me to answer some questions. I just love delving into the intricacies of this 49ers Ravens matchup. It's going to be a dandy. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm ready to answer your questions. Kenny Hamilton says that losing Kalia Davis is tough. Defensive tackle depth is going to be tested big time. I agree there. Shanahan's practices are extremely physical, more than most. But you're asking if Shanahan pulls back on the physicality of practices to not wear the 49ers down. Yes, he does that. He's done that every single season. The 49ers pull back as the season progresses. They have sports science guys to optimize the rest of these players, the freshness of these players. So training camp is going to be really physical, maybe some physicality early in the season. But by the end here, there are not too many practices with pads on if you're the 49ers. So they already have pulled back and they are trying to keep that fatigue under control. The best way to rest, though, is just to not play football games. So if you can earn that bye, which is what the 49ers are close to doing, then you're going to be in the best position possible. Go for broke. Hopes the 49ers have Armstead and Hargrave. I think everybody hopes that. I think everybody wants to see, except for the Ravens, two teams at full strength in this game on Monday. Yep, I would think that you would see Kevin Givens and Kinlaw starting again if Armstead and Hargrave don't play, especially now that Kalia Davis is unavailable. He's on injured reserve with high ankle sprain. Will there be a spy? Occasionally there might be. You can't be too predictable with a spy because a spy takes away a player in coverage and you're going to get burnt by a quarterback that is, I really do think Lamar's having his best season throwing the football from a conventional quarterback perspective. And a conventional QB is going to rip you apart if you're spying him on every down. So it's going to be a chess match, and Steve Wilkes is going to have to be on his P's and Q's against Greg Roman, right? Old 49ers friend Greg Roman calling the plays for Baltimore under John Harbaugh. This is indeed a rematch of the Super Bowl, and it might be a preview of the Super Bowl. Although the 2012 Ravens, who beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, were one of the worst Super Bowl champions of all time. That wasn't a great team. The 49ers really blew it in falling behind to the Ravens that much in that game, not being able to catch up. I think this Ravens team is a whole lot better than the Ravens team that beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I also think this 49ers team is better than the 2012 49ers team, but I digress on that front. It's going to be a good one. That's all I can say. I look at the metrics, I look at the tape, and I say, wow, the fact they have this game on week 17, Christmas, Monday Night Football, that's special. They don't have Greg Roman anymore? I didn't realize that. When did they get rid of Greg Roman in Baltimore? After last year? Well, I guess they weren't happy with the the last couple of years of Lamar. I guess they thought that he wasn't going in the right direction. From what I've watched this year with Lamar Jackson, to me it seems that he's always had a smooth release. He's always, to me, seemed like a natural thrower at the quarterback position. I know that he struggled with accuracy earlier in his NFL career, but for a guy who made, so much of his fame off of being the dual threat runner in college, and then who struggled early on, especially in the postseason, as far as playing the quarterback position, I always thought that his skill set naturally fit into that spot, that they'd be able to develop him. He looks way more comfortable back there than somebody like Jalen Hurts, for example. And when you look at the progression of Lamar Jackson over the years, I could see how there might have been some impatience from the Ravens' perspective because he had such a good year in 2019. And then there was a little bit of a treadmill in 2020, 2021, and 2022. But here in 2023, again, watch the Ravens play. I really do think that his ability to just command the quarterback position has been impressive. Greg Roman was also Andrew Luck's offensive coordinator at Stanford. That Andrew Luck right there, right? I got the Colts jersey right behind me. That's Andrew Luck after the Stanford Greg Roman days. Spencer agrees with me, says that Lamar has progressed tremendously passing the ball. I'm looking up a couple things here for you. Go ahead and put your questions in there. Steve thinks it's going to be a blowout in one direction or the other. I don't think so. I think that this is going to be a hard-fought, well-played game. I think everything's lined up for this to be close, but you never know. Couple balls bounced the wrong way early on for either one of these teams, and yeah, it could get out of hand in one of these directions. Do I have any take on Lamar being 19-1 on against NFC teams? Well, he's really talented, and I just been talking about how good I think that he is over the course of the past 5 minutes. The NFC will see Lamar Jackson a little bit less than the AFC, so it's a little bit harder to scheme against him. You generally treat conference games a little bit more seriously, and a player that's that explosive, that dynamic, well, if you're not fully locked in to working on how to stop him, he has a chance to expose you. So that's what I think about that. Some of it might just be luck too. Some of it might be that the NFC teams that he was playing in any given week, the Ravens were better than. But there's something to it. At 19-1, that's an impressive record for Lamar Jackson against NFC teams. Why does the defense look so flat at times? Well, because they're struggling a bit against the run. They're missing their defensive tackles. There's fatigue in there. The defenses look best when it's had rest. Rest is best, and that's why they want that bye week. I think that'd be the case for any defense that plays with the style that the 49ers play with. There's a little bit, I don't want to call it boom or bust. They're not taking big gambles like the Cowboys are, but they're either fresh or they're tired. And when you do play as aggressively as the 49ers do up front, that fatigue is going to show up if you don't have the proper amount of rest. So the extra day might help here, but most importantly, the postseason, the 49ers want to line themselves up to have as much freshness for that part of the year as possible. Richard Sherman mentioned the Ravens have a real problem scoring in the second half of games. I want to get the exact number on this. This is not a unique thing, I think, to the Ravens. I think the 49ers have had this issue before under Kyle Shanahan. They don't have it this year. This year they're scoring in all quarters, but you see a lot of teams succeed with their opening script, right? Because that's what you practice during the week. It's very choreographed. You know which way you're going to go based on what situation. And then you see the defense also come out in a more vanilla game plan early on. Then the adjustments are made. And it's a question of as an offense, can you sustain the scoring and the production past halftime after a lot of the adjustments are certainly made? And the Ravens have taken a dip in the second half. I am aware of this. I don't know exactly what the number is, but I'm sure Sherm has that backed up with his stats. It's an opportunity for any defense. If you can counter adjust or adjust ahead of the counter adjustments of the opposing team, well, then you can have that second half be in the fast lane. And that's a place where the 49ers have become much less vulnerable over time because they have so many damn weapons on that offensive end, and they have a quarterback right now that's processing it all at an all-pro rate, right? Brock Purdy is playing MVP caliber football for this football team. So that's allowed the 49ers to stay ahead of adjustments. I do think that Lamar Jackson has obviously, like I've been saying, has gotten better as a passer over the course of his NFL career, especially this season. So you've always got to be on the lookout in that second half. But there has been a statistical decline in the second half, just like there is around a lot of the league, because defenses will dig in and defenses will figure out what those offensive schemes are after about 30 minutes of play. Sooner, you would hope, but the adjustments are sometimes implemented at halftime. The Ravens' offensive line is indeed good. Ronnie Stanley over there at left tackle. I think their weakest link is at that left guard position. If you look just at the Ravens from left to right, the 49ers, with John Simpson over there, I think the 49ers really, really want to have some firepower available on the inside, because that's where I really think the interior is where the 49ers can win this game on both sides. You work against John Simpson and the Ravens' interior offensive line with premier defensive tackles if they're healthy, and Armstead and Hargrave. And on the other side of the football, I think the Ravens are a little bit undersized at their defensive tackle positions, and the 49ers are going to want to take advantage of that. 49ers linebackers are paramount to making Lamar uncomfortable and taking away his easy reads in first and second down. Yeah, it ties right into Lamar Jackson being so good with the short pass efficiency this year. The linebackers are key pieces toward taking that away. That means Dre Greenlaw actually needs to practice this week. He didn't practice last week, didn't have his best game by a long shot. I don't think Fred Warner was helped by the fact that Dre Greenlaw couldn't practice due to the hip injury, and Warner didn't play a good game against Arizona. The linebackers are the fulcrum of the defense because they're at the middle of the formation against a team like Baltimore that loves to run the ball but can also deliver on a lot of those timing routes. Your linebackers have to be able to be that defensive fulcrum that can cover both the run and the pass. You're exactly right about that. So we're going to have all that news tomorrow. Stay tuned. 49ers against the Ravens. Number 4 offense, number 2 defense for Baltimore. Lamar Jackson doing a lot of stuff really well this year. The 49ers facing the final boss of the regular season. The preview series will continue. I think this is preview number 4, number 5 that I've done for you. So subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and I'll talk to you very soon because the week is just now starting. Tomorrow, the 49ers will undergo their first practice of Ravens week, and I'll be there to report on it. I'll have the update and everything else for you very, very soon. Everybody have a good night.